Welcome to the Footy Philosophy Podcast. I'm your host today, Brendan Powers, here again with my friend Kevin, wearing his Brazil kit as I wear my Spain kit. David Silva, your stars are obviously more than mine for obvious reasons,
Yeah,
but how we doing today, Kev?
we're doing good. We're rocking the Diego Costa theme kits today. Um, but yeah, we're doing good. So it's kind of been a slower day for me, so it kind of represents the last week or so of the games we've had here. But there are some interesting things that happened for sure.
Yeah, and that's kind of the issue is just it's really not been a great uh string of fixtures, so to speak. Some upsets here, some obvious wins a lot of the time, and a lot of them in non-fascinating fashion. Um, and that's kind of why we didn't even do a pod after the weekend games because we were like, there was some stuff to talk about, but there's more stuff to talk about now. The problem is that Serie A was a really boring weekend, but we do return with Real Madrid and La Liga coming back, which is a good start to the year. Um, we talk about. I just want to mention before we even get into it, we talk about those wishes, right? Remember, my wish was
Yeah,
better refereeing. That did not happen. Hatafe sees 3 red cards. I don't know if you saw the Mason Greenwood one, but it was really bad. Um, and even more so beyond that, Sociedad see a red card. It's just La Liga is just never gonna get better. But we're gonna start on a very interesting topic today. Um, FIFA dropped their FIFA Pro World 11 nominees. And I'll go through the list really quick. In the keeper position, we have Courtois, Ederson, and Martinez. In defense, we have Ruben Diaz, VVD, Militao, Rudiger, Stones, Walker. Midfield, KDB, Bellingham, Gundogan, Modric, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, Fede. And attack, Kareem, The Dream, Benzema, Erling Haaland, Harry Kane, Mbappe, Messi, Cristiano, and Vinny Jr. There's obviously two significant things that we see here. Lots of City and Real Madrid players here. Does that shock you at all?
I mean, it doesn't shock me considering City win the treble, and I think we'll get into it in a second. But they won the treble, but it's like how many of those guys that they put in were truly outstanding? Kyle Walker, eh. John Stones, I understand why. Gundogan, I kind of get it. Rodri makes sense. Bernardo Silva, though, eh. Holland, of course. They also put in KDB, which I understand he's one of their talismans, but I probably wanted to
He's
put
never
him in.
healthy either.
Yeah, I probably wanted to put him in, and I don't know. Rodri, he scores the Champions League winning goal. Fair enough. Holland, all of his goals. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we want to talk about osimhen as well, or just the fact that there's no Serie A players in there.
Even kvaratskelia as well.
Yeah,
You know, Latoro, they make
yeah,
the final and nowhere to be found. So it's just it kind of a lot of these awards have lost the validity over the years because of who's not included and who is included. We don't have to go through every single person and be like, does this person deserve it? Kareem Benzema makes the list, but it definitely wasn't one of his better years last year. Erling Haaland deserves to be there. Harry Kane deserves to be there. Mbappe deserves to be there. Does Lionel Messi deserve to be there? In my opinion, probably not. He's based there on name. And something that should be mentioned is that this isn't like the Ballon d'Or where it's by writers or it's not. These are other professionals voting for other professionals. So some of the criteria is it starts August 2022 and finishes August 2023. FIFA sends the 70 affiliated players unions to distribute unique links so they can vote. The players are choose. The players are free to choose whoever they want. There's approximately 250 names on the list, and then you have at the end 1 goalkeeper, 3 defenders, 3 midfielders, 3 forwards, and then the 11th person who receives the most votes will get in. So as I mentioned with the attackers, and then Bellingham was great with Dortmund, so probably deserves to be there. Gundogan, I think, probably deserves to be there because of how crucial he was for Man City. Does Luka Modric deserve to be there? Probably not. Does
Yeah,
Rodri deserve to
probably
be
not.
there? Yeah. Does Bernardo Silva deserve to be there? Probably not. Does Fede Valverde deserve to be there? In my opinion, yes, but actually, no, he doesn't. He doesn't. His form post World Cup after he almost lost his child was terrible. And you and I both read that. I don't know if you ever finished the Players Tribune. I know I sent it to you, but he
Yeah,
probably doesn't deserve to be on the list. Actually, with the defenders though, is probably the one place where I wouldn't normally have like all these guys are deservingly so, but Antonio Rudiger wasn't even a starter for Real Madrid last year, so why is he on the list?
yeah,
And then with keepers, sorry, I was just gonna say Courtois and Ederson I'm fine with. Um, Martinez does not deserve to be there. Martinez and Messi are both there based on a 7-game World Cup. Is anyone else on this list there based on the World Cup? No. These are all guys that are based on there from what they did in the season. So I'm going to leave the floor to you to respond to anything I just said. I know it was a lot.
no, it's fine. I feel as if we get caught between like moments, consistency, and then just things that aren't normally the case, like a World Cup. That obviously only happens every 4 years, so we get caught in between all of these sorts of things. Courtois being there, I completely get. The keepers, I'm fine with. I mean, Martinez getting a shout. I mean, which other? If you're gonna have three keepers, I'm not really sure who the third would be besides Courtois and Ederson.
I was going to
Um,
say, at least Onana, had a great run with Inter. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Um, and
that's what a
I kind of
15
agree
game
with you.
tournament.
What'd
The
you say?
UCL's I said the UCL's what a 15-game tournament. So
Yeah,
you got a little bit more there.
and like you said, earlier on, it's all about name recognition, and they're glorified popularity contests to an extent. It's not like these are based off of advanced metrics or anything like that. I don't know. It feels like when I was younger, these World 11s were like a lot more clear cut, and nowadays because talent, which we'll actually get into, talent is a little bit more dispersed. Not a whole lot, but it's more spread out. I would say than like 10 years ago. So it
Players
makes
are
it,
probably less talented too, I would say.
yeah, that could be the
Like
case.
in general, you know what I mean? Like you don't really have your um, you know, Dinos and you don't have your Zidans and everyone's just a cog in the machine.
Yeah, it is a little bleak like that. You might disagree with me, but I'm not really sure why Vinicius gets in either.
Oh, see, I disagree.
Yeah,
Do you want me
but
to pull up the stats? I can pull up the stats for you.
go
I can
ahead.
pull up the advanced metrics. Okay. So he was the um number one progressor into the final third in both UCL and La Liga and the world. He was number one entries into the final third in UCL. He was number one in chances created in UCL. He was number one in assists in UCL, tied with Kevin De Bruyne. He was number one in take-ons in the world. He was number one in dribbles in the world. And then on top of that, he was I don't want to misquote, above 40 goals and assists per season, but below 50. It was like a 48. I want to say it was like 25 and 23 or something like that. So in my opinion, that's why I think Vinicius Jr. deserves to be there,
I mean, yeah,
despite
that's
having a really rough
yeah,
start to the year. But that doesn't mean that someone like maybe Son, who had a bad year last year, but I'm using him as an example. If Son put up those same numbers, it doesn't mean he necessarily gets in. Then he gets in because of his name and contribution, if you know what I mean.
yeah. And you convinced me. That's fine. But that's sort of the problem. That's what I want to focus on. It's like just at a quick glance, you're like Vinicius Jr. Well, Madrid didn't win anything. Um, so
No, nothing.
it kind of you know you go off of which clubs have won things, but then also other players that didn't win anything deserve to be there, like a Vinicius Jr., which you've just kind of convinced me of. And it's hard to think back over August 2022. It's a year and a half ago now. It's weird. I don't know. I don't really see why anyone would care too
Why
much
is Mo
about things like
Salah
this,
not
but it
there?
does.
Like, why
Yeah,
is Mo
well,
Salah not
Salah.
there? Why is Osimhen not
There are
there?
no Africans. Yeah,
It's
it's
just, it's kind of. Why is Messi and Cristiano there though? Like, what did they do? Like,
well,
seriously? What did they do?
I know that we would get into a big disagreement about this, but Messi did win the World Cup.
I just don't think a 7-game tournament should make you one of the best players for the season. That's all.
So
If
were
he did
you?
it, if he did it for PSG, then I would have been okay with it.
Yeah, but were you?
Because
Were you
I think
okay
you were about
with?
to bring up the Modric stuff, right? Is that what you were about to bring
Yeah,
up?
yeah.
Modric did it for Real Madrid over 50 some games and then did it at the World Cup for 7. That's the difference for me.
Fair enough. I understand that. Yeah, Ronaldo being there though is, you know, that's a shocker. I don't see why.
Half the list doesn't deserve to be there. Half the list.
Yeah,
I think you and I could put together a better list than what's there.
we probably should have.
Luke Shaw, defense.
Well,
Only when
I
England plays in the Euros, that's it.
yeah, yeah. You know, that's the thing. Like, throw in Trippier instead of Walker. You know, like represent who's had a good calendar year. No
Yeah.
matter if it starts in January or August, doesn't matter. I don't know. I think
They essentially said who had the best 2023 season and just put in the big names and it's a FIFA reward. Remember, it's not like it's just a European award. It's not like it's a, like it's a FIFA award and there's not a single Asian player on there. And I'm not saying there should be, but there's not a single Asian, there's not a single African, there's not a single North American.
yeah,
Alfonso Davies is actually someone that actually probably has a shout to be on that list. I'm not saying he deserves it, but he has a shout. Um, and it's funny because Nikki and I were going over the old Ballon d'Or rankings one time at work,
yeah,
and it was just funny because you're looking at the older names and you go and look at their numbers. And you're just like, damn, like they really just gave this guy the Ballon d'Or because he played great football that year. Like it had nothing to do with GA, it had nothing to do with name, and it was just class and deserved. So yeah, it's just a different world. A lot of people complain, and I think we need to find a happy medium. And this is a little off topic, but you'll find it permanent to the conversation. A lot of people are like, "Oh, we're living on computers, and we're living on XG, and we're living on this, and stats, and this." And like, stats are important, man. Like, let's not act like if you are missing, if you're producing a good XA, we're just gonna act like you're not a good player. Like, relax, okay? Um,
yeah,
but I do get the point that like someone like Bruno Fernandez, and I'm not this isn't a shit on him but he produces a high XA. He produces a lot of big chances created. He produces a lot of chances created because he receives the ball and he puts the ball in the box immediately. He doesn't he doesn't play the game beautifully like Zinedine Zidane. And because of that, his XA is going to be really high. So we need to be contextual with everything. But that being said, I just think that um, you know, I just think we need to find a happy medium, and I think we're going to get there between the beautiful game. We talk about this with relationism and positionalism too, because positionalism is essentially playing the game on a spreadsheet. Um,
yeah,
so that's just kind of my little rant for right now about it, and I think you'd agree with what I'm saying.
yeah. I do. That summarizes the problems we face when creating awards like this. It's Vinicius Jr. is someone who has good stats and plays the game beautifully, whereas someone like you mentioned, Bruno Fernandes, he has great stats, but he plays the game pretty shockingly sometimes.
Like a right
Yeah,
back, dude, that just receives the ball and sends a cross into the box.
yeah. Anyways, I I feel like I've said enough here. If you'd like to,
That's fine. Yeah, no, let's
yeah,
move on. So we had EPL games this weekend. They keep on through the winter, unlike a lot of other leagues. And so we had some upsets, some good games, some interesting fixtures. Um, Starting off, we had a couple good fixtures. Liverpool, Newcastle. Liverpool win 4-2 and produced the highest XG. There's those stats we're talking about. The most
yeah,
XG ever. Um, I didn't actually. Liverpool could have scored more, but I didn't think that. Um, like I didn't think they were a 7.1 xG though.
Dude, I mean, that was surprising. I think they were well worth their 4 goals, and like you said, they could have scored more. But the shots that they were taking, they weren't from outside the box or anything like that. They were creating so many good chances. And the thing about it is Dubravka for Newcastle was on fire. He has at least 3 or 4 saves that I can think of off the top of my head that should have been goals. Um, I don't know. There's no Trippier for Newcastle. I don't know how important that is, but he's your captain, so he's going to help the back line be a bit more cohesive. Altogether, though, I thought Liverpool looked like the best team in the world in this game. They were absolutely carving open Newcastle, and I know that Newcastle have some injuries and all that, but regardless, some of their build-up play was so intricate, so fast. It just reminded you of older Liverpool. Um, Trent
Yeah.
tucking into midfield now is looking like a good move.
Well, all I was gonna say is that they are gonna struggle without Mohamed Salah.
Yeah, for sure.
Who's gonna take their pens? I don't know. Probably, you would think VVD would step up. That would be my guess. But still, because I ain't trusting Darwin. I'm not trusting Yota. I'm not trusting anyone on that field other than VVD, in my opinion. I mean, I think I trust Ali Son more than I trust any of them.
No, now that I think about it, Alexis McAllister's a pretty good pen taker.
Is he? Okay, that
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah,
They're also losing Endo, which is going to hurt a lot because he's brought a
yeah,
lot of stability to this team since McAllister went down. And it wasn't a flashy signing, but there's the signings you need. Sometimes you need to pay the 10 to 7 mil to hold over until you can actually go get a world class, player in a certain position.
yeah.
Um, so all that being said, I thought Liverpool dominated. But in and on paper, it's like, oh my God, they dominated Newcastle. But this isn't the same Newcastle that we saw at the beginning of the year. And it's no shame to Liverpool. You can only play the team that's in front of you. But I'm not going to run to the hills about them dominating a tired and dead Newcastle team that's been essentially running out the same 11 for 4 months now.
Yeah, that's a good way to sort of be a bit reasonable. As like, it's just when you were watching that game, it was hard not to get caught up in like asking questions of whether or not it's Liverpool's league to lose at this point. They have a sizable lead over Man City now, but Salah being gone is absolutely massive. I know that they've recalled Fabio Carvalho from loan. Is that going to be a big help? Probably not. I don't know. Salah's. I think he's added to his game. He's become much more of a creator too. Outside the boot pass to Gakpo for the goal was absolutely nasty. But yeah,
I thought it was actually quite a poor game from Mohamed Salah in like what I'm expecting from him. First, like
yeah,
the problem is he's not the same player he once was, and like you said, he's added some tools to the box, but also his tools have some wear on him as well, if you know what I mean.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
he's not as good as a finisher as he used to be. Um, as we saw, he missed a couple sitters. I mean, that pen he took was terrible. That was
It was.
that was so bad. And you did mention that they have a sizable lead. They're 5 points up on City, but City do have a game in hands, and it's against Brentford. So with that being said, there's still a race to be had, and actually, I know we talked about it a couple episodes. I still think, as of right now, it's City's league to lose. Um,
That's fair, and that's it's the more reasonable opinion to have, especially now that they're adding KDB and Holland back. Um,
and they play Newcastle next, so that's going to be an ass whooping.
yeah, which is crazy because last year I would have feared playing Newcastle. It's crazy.
Those extra games, man, they kill you. Those
Yeah,
extra games to the fixtures, they kill you. And Newcastle only had zero point 0.6 xG. That's so bad.
it,
Tottenham beats Bournemouth 3-1. Well, there was a penalty, right? Am I wrong?
oh, I don't even know why
Did
I
you guys
can't
get a pen?
remember.
I don't remember. Because I
No,
remember
we
because
did.
this XG doesn't seem right. XG 2.3 to 1.7. A penalty seems like there might have been there. There were a couple days past, guys. We're sorry for listeners.
Yeah,
Um, but
I
nope, no
completely
penalty.
agree.
Because I remember us talking about Tottenham kind of being dominated in this sense, but the XG kind of says differently. Um,
Yeah,
so what were your thoughts on this performance? I'm gonna do some deep dive on some advanced statistics real quick, and then I'll get back to you.
yeah, go for it. Well, like you kind of just hinted at, it did feel lucky. I'd be interested to see what the momentum bar looks like because there were just long periods of time where Bournemouth were dominating Spurs. There's no way around it. That mid block was working pretty damn well. We didn't have bissouma to really be that press proof guy and break the press. And I also that's what I see here now is Spurs looked very shaky at the back with Emerson Royale back there, and Davies wasn't playing his best, which I think that's excusable because he's been so good for us. But yeah, we looked shaky at the back, so I think that's another reason why it felt like Bournemouth were dominating. The thing is, like the chances they were creating weren't the greatest chances. They weren't. And there it is. There's the expected threat. They 1.3 for Spurs to 2.2 for Bournemouth. They were the more threatening side. The field was tilted in their favor, so there you go. I guess the XG, Son had a chance that was definitely a high XG. It was probably like zero point 0.4. Regardless, I think something worth mentioning here is that Lo Celso looked really good, and he's continuously looked really good. Which while Madison is out, I think this is huge for what Postecoglou is going to set his lineup like. He can have Richarlison and Brennan Johnson still. He'll probably move Johnson to the left, throw Kulusevski on the right, and then Lo Celso will be that 10. And it's not a bad attacking quad, really.
Not at
Um,
all.
so I think Sarr and Bissouma surprisingly will be the players we miss the most. I mean, Sarr goes down in the 30th minute, and it's really sad for such a young player. And he's crying as he leaves, but it seems like he'll be fine, and he'll be ready to go for Senegal and AFCON. This is what I was thinking about when it comes to Bournemouth is if
Mhm.
Solanke, I don't know the pronunciation, but if his hot streak doesn't continue, which it didn't in this game, are Bournemouth as good as we think they are? You know what I mean? Like I would say he's the only player on that squad that is like a formidable attacker. Um, will Areola still look or Iriola? I'm off my pronunciation game, but will he still look as good as he has been? He has 13 goals, Solanke, and most of them have come recently. So I think that's worth keeping in mind as well. Um, I don't know. Do you have any thoughts? I just rambled for a long time.
We talked about this a little bit. And I know you mentioned the advanced metrics I put into the doc when you were going on, so I appreciate that. Um, and something I had mentioned is just a separate talking point, and if Bournemouth just get a little bit of money to spend, um, Areola will be able to do wonders with the team and the talent. So it's just going to be real interesting to see how they decide to build a team in the future and how long they keep him on. Because right now he's punching above weight. You got to keep a guy in the seat as long as he's punching above his weight, you'd think. So that being said, just I want to see how well this Bournemouth team actually continues to grow. And moving on to a game that had a similar situation, where we felt like, and the similar situation was Tottenham won because they had better players. Chelsea won because they had better players. Chelsea beat Luton 3-2. Chelsea actually lose on XG, which they have won the most games on XG this year, 2.6 to 0.99. They get out XT'd 2.3 to 0.8. They get outfield tilted 72.5 to 27.5. This Chelsea team continues to struggle away from home, and Luton's tough at home, but Cole Palmer really puts the team on his back. And
Yeah.
is Cole Palmer that guy? And two, can he be that guy? And three, why is Chelsea's away form so bad?
I mean, those are all important questions. I do think Palmer's that guy right now. He has been really good for them, and against us, he was, or us, I should say, Spurs. Against Spurs, he was looking very, very good. Um, and he's younger. He comes from City, obviously. He's got all the tools and has had, uh, you know, an education and what it means to play in a team where you're number 10. Um, I don't know. I think uh, I think Chelsea struggle away from home mainly because they can't finish their chances. You know what I mean? Like this is the one time where they're outperform their XG. Um, at home, your chances are a bit easier to finish. I feel. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but there's a psychological aspect there where you're more comfortable. It's the place where you play more often than anywhere else. You don't have fans, booing you when you get the ball, whistling when you get the ball, things like that. Um, yeah, this one screams the quality of players a bit more than Tottenham Bournemouth, but it's still the same common thread here is that Luton and Bournemouth, if they have people on the level like Dominic Solanke across the front three and in midfield, these games go differently. You know what I mean? You need like that 6.5, 7 out of 10 player, and Luton walk away with 3 points, and Bournemouth probably do too, maybe a draw. But yeah, Luton dominated them. 72.5 to 27.5 field tilt is crazy. That shouldn't be happening for Chelsea either, which I guess is a separate talking point. Like, there's no way that that's acceptable as Chelsea. Um, but yeah, it's a it's this weird thing we're going on here. I mean, I know that this has been going on forever. Teams that have more talent, you know, more fortunate coffers, so to speak.
Resources.
Yeah, exactly. That's that's a better way of putting it. But teams that have those better resources have been around for a long time. But now that we know more and like we look at statistics a bit more, it becomes more of a pertinent thing. It becomes more of a thing that I think we should consider when we talk about how good teams really are, if that makes sense. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, the first question is Cole Palmer that guy? I still don't think he is that guy. I will say my tune has changed after that performance against Luton. I mean, he was that guy in that performance, but you got to be that guy in a performance 8 times out of 10 to be the guy. That being
Sure.
said, though, I don't know how much they spent on Cole Palmer. It was a little too much, especially for a guy that really, after you bought in Kunku, is now supposed to be your backup 10. Like, he's supposed to fill in for Nkunku is kind of the goal. And I do think he can also play on the wing, so I think that was a positive too for them.
Yeah.
But um, he's still young. I will say I've become a little enamored with him after the performance, and I was pretty happy to see, for his sake, um, a guy who was always on the outskirts at City, like someone like Phil Foden. Despite not always being the 11, he's never really been on the outskirts there.
Yeah.
So it's got to be nice and feel good for him to come into somewhere and be in the fold. We did say when Nkunku comes back, hopefully it fixes things. It doesn't seem like it has. And Chelsea actually does a really good job of not really conceding a bunch of XG, but they did in this game. And Luton, it feels pretty hard done by Luton. They just lost to a couple moments of magic from Cole Palmer. 2 goals and an assist. Clearly the man of the match.
Yeah.
And
And it kind of hit me when you're saying it. It's like, not to drive the narrative too much, but in a game where Luton deserved to win, a big scalp against Chelsea, this could determine or have implications for relegation a few months down the line from now. And because Chelsea had the one guy Cole Palmer this time. Other times it could have been Enzo, it could have been whoever. Because they had that one guy, now Luton, don't get those massive 3 points. And I don't. That's not to blame Chelsea. It's not like, oh, you need to buy the same players that Luton are capable of. It's just like I think if you want a competitive game, which this was, but the longevity of a competitive game and not see how it is right now, where lots of these leagues turn into farmers leagues. I don't know. I just feel like there's some weird things bubbling up here, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know.
does. No, it does. And it's just, I'm not saying that there's more disparity, but because there's always been a disparity, but the disparity wasn't in the EPL. The disparity was like, or the disparity was more in the league than it was anywhere else. You know what I mean? Like teams are now being forced to play their best 11 as much as possible when in the past you really didn't have to because, teams are pushing 100 points every year. Um,
Yeah.
the quality of football is just not as good as it used to be, I guess. I don't really know what I'm trying to say because, the EPL is fantastic, but back in the day, like Cole Palmer would probably be plying his trade not for Chelsea, but for Sheffield United, for like 3 million and not even 3 million, probably like 300K. Um, but we don't get to see that anymore because the big clubs just kind of, Real Madrid included, snatch up as much as they can.
No, yeah,
Um,
that's a great
but
point.
like also we used to see like the Eredivisie teams going to Champions. Like there was no easy games in the Champions League. Like now you're like, oh man, we all want Porto or we all want, dude, man, come on, I got Bayern. What can I got
Yeah.
Leipzig? Like, you know what I mean? So there just seems to be a bigger disparity between top and bottom, both in league and Europe. I don't know. It just seemed like, like Alan Shearer was plying his trade for Newcastle, and Newcastle was class back then, but they're still Newcastle. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Harry Kane, like staying at Spurs he would have been a Spurs player for his whole career. Like actually, Harry Kane never leaving is actually like very old fashioned. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Like
Uh,
think about it. Like Samuel Eto'o used to play for Mallorca, bro. Like he left Real Madrid's academy and went to Mallorca, and then he went to
yeah.
Barcelona. Like I don't know. It's I don't know. It just seems like guys aren't really class anymore.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point because now, like you said, Cole Palmer probably would have been a more realistic player at Sheffield 10 years ago.
Bournemouth's a better way to put it. Let's say Bournemouth. Like
Yeah.
if we're comparing Bournemouth to today, because they're hitting above their weight. Cole Palmer's a good player. He's a very good
Yeah.
player.
But
He
instead,
deserves to be a
Chelsea
starter somewhere. Let's say that.
Chelsea have the option to spend 40 million, which, you know, 40 million loosely, mind you. It's not like that was their only signing or their second,
Yeah.
1, 2 signings. Spend 40 million loosely on a guy who, like you say, he's good, and I agree he's good. But on a guy who, they're sort of taking a flyer on, and like you said, he was meant to be their fucking backup. 40
Yeah.
million for a backup. I don't know.
That's
That
crazy.
that that's the I think that's the main point here. But I think I've personally exhausted the point a bit. I don't know if you
Yeah,
feel
and
it's
something
time.
I just want to say. So this is just one last thing I want to add. Um, Real Madrid do that, right? They spend 45 on Vinicius. They spend 50 on Rodrigo. They spend 35 on Rainier Jesus. They bring in Taki Kubo. They bring in Arda Güler. They take flyers on these guys, but they're not. They're being bought for the future and not to be used right. Like you're spending that money for a backup, but you're spending that money for someone that you project to be a starter eventually. And you've seen it pay dividends with a lot of players. We see it with Camavinga. Fede Valverde costs like 5 million from Penarol. Uh and Militao, we got from Porto. which, Porto's a big club. But still, it's a flyer. He's a young kid. 1 year in Europe, we go and spend 40 on him. Delict was on the market, Upamecano, like all these guys who you could have got, you didn't get. So the point being is that, like, it's not a bad thing that Chelsea's doing. It's actually probably for the better. But Chelsea's biggest problem is they're not going to give Cole Palmer enough time to actually
No.
develop, and they're going to want results immediately. And also, Chelsea isn't Real Madrid, and Real Madrid properly does their due diligence on everybody they sign. Actually, not
Yeah.
everybody. Luka Jovic is one of them. They did not clearly do due diligence on. But that being said, if you don't have anything to add, we can kind of keep it pushing.
Yeah. Right
So we
into
have 2-2-1 losses. Oh, okay. No, what? Sorry.
yeah. I was just gonna say right into the Fulham 2-1 Arsenal.
Yeah, and then we'll just talk about them together because they're kind
Sure.
of similar. Forest beat United 2-1. Arsenal was a better team. United weren't, but two big clubs dropped 2 points to teams that they shouldn't. We actually were talking about kind of how Fulham were kind of in bad form, but really, Arsenal is in worse form, is probably the worst form we've seen them in, like, since, their title run last year, I'd say.
Yeah.
United continue to be in their worst form since Ten Hag took over. So that's kind of what I mean by, like, two similar teams in two similar situations, both away from home, both lose. United get not properly dominated, but you lose XT, you lose XG, you lose field tilt. Or sorry, never mind.
They win
You
their
lose XG, you lose XG, you win XT, you win field tilt, and you still come out with a loss. While Arsenal win XG, probably win XT, and win field tilt. I could do it quick, but I'm gonna assume because I watched the Fulham Arsenal game. I actually had no faith that Arsenal were gonna win that game. Saka scores early, but I've kind of talked about this a lot, and you can touch on it too. Arsenal isn't meant to be in, they're meant to, like, lull you to death and win like 1-2-0, and they're coming up in a bad defensive time right now, and they're giving up 2 goals, or they're giving up, or they're not scoring. And they're meant
Yeah.
to lull you to death, and they're just not able to do that because they're conceding so often. And it kind of just shows that the way Arteta's built this Arsenal team, it's not correct.
It's really
And even
weird.
more so beyond that, one last thing I want to touch it because I want you to answer this. Arsenal clearly need a striker, right?
Yes. That's what I was gonna lead off with. It's no disrespect to Nketiah, even from a Spurs fan, I like him and I think he's a good backup striker. But
Arsenal's not his level.
Arsenal's not his level and Gabriel Jesus is on the
Sheffield United.
bench. Yeah. And Nketiah's been chosen over Gabriel Jesus in this game. Right? So it's clear that Gabriel Jesus isn't really gonna work out. His best position probably isn't, a true number 9, whatever that means today. Who knows what it really means today, but regardless, he should probably be on the left, maybe on the right. He's a good pressing forward, but he's not going to score goals for you.
Yeah.
And Ketia, a bit different, but yeah, they absolutely need a striker. And if they have the money to go get Osimhen, just like Chelsea, it might fix some of their problems. But I don't know. Fulham are, I think it's pretty funny. They're the most unpredictable team in the league. They'll get battered 5-0, but then they'll beat Arsenal. And also, I think something comes back to bite Arsenal in a way. I might be trying to intellectualize this a bit too much, but like Arsenal and Chelsea aren't really prepared to do the things like we said Liverpool are earlier, to sign Endo for 10 million. If Arsenal had a guy like Raul Jimenez who scores in this game on their bench, he might get that goal. I think he's a guy who's a great finisher. Sure, he might not, the injury worries and all that, but he's going to finish some chances, and you have the guys to create chances on this team. I don't know. It's strange. And then United is
And we'll
kind of
touch on this player later. We'll touch on this later. We'll get into United in a sec. But, like, Atletico actually putting faith in someone like Alvaro Morata, like, yeah, he's gonna miss some chances, but you got a 9 in the box that, his off ball movement's good enough and you feed him enough, he's gonna score enough. You know what I mean? Like, just go like, you don't need a world class 9 to be successful. I mean, like, Real Madrid don't even have a 9, but guess what? We got Jose Lu off the bench, and like sometimes you need someone to hold that back line, to push that back line, to make havoc in the box. Like, sometimes you need guys like that, and Arsenal don't even have one of them in their squad at all. And
Yeah.
that's concerning in general. Um, do you want to touch on that, or do you just want to move to
Yeah, just two
Nottingham?
real quick things. Arsenal only have one win in their last 6 matches to sort of, give some, further context to them being in,
That's really
bad
bad.
form. And they're falling out of this title race pretty fast. They're still
Maybe
definitely
even
in it,
top
but
four.
it's getting to that point where you have to think that way. And then
Well,
the other thing is like
they're competing on multiple fronts. That's really the issue. Spurs don't have that problem.
we do not. And talking with Spurs, I did want to tie Spurs back into it. You saw Postecoglou start the season off with Richarlison. He wasn't scoring. Go to Son at the 9. Madison gets hurt, which has implications, but Postecoglou went back to Richarlison, starting at striker. And now we've won four out of our last 5 games. And, you know, Arsenal need a guy like Richarlison now. This is what we've been saying. You need a guy to pin defenders back. It creates more space in the box. Fulham are able to sit back. This is the problem City were having when they didn't have a true 9. And then they got Holland, and it's created, newer problems, but still. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to say
problems,
there.
putting that in air quotes on that one. What
Yeah, for sure, for
problems?
sure.
You have a
First
reliable
world
9,
problem.
the best in the world to score goals. Oh my God, Pep, I'm so sorry. Um, but also something to mention. You saying the Tottenham thing clicked something in my brain. Were you the one that sent me the open play goals this year? Is that
Yes.
you?
Yeah.
Arsenal were bottom. I don't know if you recognize. I know you saw Tottenham at top, but Arsenal were bottom. They only have 20 open play goals. They have 37 goals scored in the Prem this year, and 20 of them are from open play. That means 17 are either from dead ball situations or from any dead ball situation.
Yeah.
That's not good at all, and not you can't rely on that. Like, if you're maybe a bottom of the table team and you just have some guys like if you're playing like a fucking 5-4-1. Okay,
Yeah.
you can rely on that. But if you're a ball dominant side, you can't rely on that, man.
No.
Um, Transitioning to Forest United, hell of a game by Elanga, I will say. Who is someone that United pushed out. Um, and I like him. He's probably not United level, but definitely good enough to be a backup at United, much like Daniel James, who they also pushed out. Elanga was on a mission. But he's Nottingham Forest level, maybe a little above that, because he still has some room to grow. But he finds his level. And this Nottingham Forest team, they're so not good, but they've spent money and they find themselves above the relegation zone. They're trying to stay up. And 3 points against any Manchester United team is a great result for them.
Absolutely. And I love to talk about City Ground because I remember their first game in the Prem last season. I watched it. It was electric, and I was sold, and I kind of even got a soft spot for them after that game. It was amazing, and so it's a hard place to play. But again, just like Chelsea with Luton, this is unacceptable for United. It always has been, and it always will be. I know Forest are kind of like they have some history there, but you look at the front four here, especially that middle three. Well, what's his face is hurt, but Gibbs White and Elanga. Point being, Gibbs White and Elanga are you know bigger club rejects, and it's no disrespect to them, but that's what they are, and it's cool to see them get a little bit of a resurgence. I don't know. I'm really losing my train of thought right now. to,
I
to
don't know.
keep it real.
Chris Wood again with a good performance up top, I will say.
Yeah.
But I don't really think there's much more to add. Just what we expect from United at this point. Wolves beat Everton 3-0. Are we concerned about Everton's form right now?
Um, Not necessarily, but this is the sign of a team that's like really starting to lose what they had going. Um, 0.45 xg and conceding 2.57. It's not as if it was a unlucky result. They kept the field tilt pretty even, but like you said here, City at home, that's tough. Everton away is, I mean, Wolves away is tough. Molineux's a tough stadium. And Wolves are surprisingly pretty good. They're a surprise package this year, so I'm not too
Everton just
worried.
got to beat the teams below them. Just beat the teams below you and
Yeah,
stay up. And I don't want to see Everton get relegated. Just the other games. Man City beat Sheffield 2-0. Nothing really to talk to through there. 93.1% field tilt, kind of incredible when you think about it. Villa beat Burnley 3-2. Get a pen late. And Burnley actually tied the game after going a man down at 2, and then give up a pen late and then lose. Then just the other two results: Crystal Palace beat Brentford 3-1, and then West Ham and Brighton 0-0. Pretty boring game when you really think about it.
yeah.
Um, La Liga hasn't been much better. Getafe lose to Rayo Vallecano 2-0 after 3 red cards. Greenwood's red card, absolutely ridiculous. Sociedad drop points again, 1-1, and lose Take Kubo. They'll drop points at home to Alaves. You can't do that. Another red card in that game. Keeper gets sent off for handball outside the box. I don't know if you saw, but Kubo's comments were kind of interesting. He had kind of said, like, I need protection. Um,
Mm,
we talk about it all the time. Vinicius gets literally assaulted. Takekubo the same. Just because they're the old footballers we're talking about that the game needs and misses. They do it all. They can shoot, they can pass, they can dribble. It's not system bound.
yeah,
But Kubo's comments, hold weight. Vigo, despite getting a red card, win 2-1 against Real Betis at home, which is a much needed result. Rafa Benitez has to be counting his days left as manager in Vigo. Real Madrid luckily come away with a 1-0 victory as Antonio Rudiger gets on the score sheet. You know, these are usually the months where Real Madrid struggles, so if they can continue to get points here, that'll be good for them. Osasuna beat Almeria 1-0. Sevilla and Athletic Club are playing right now. Berenguer steps in for Inaki Williams, who's away at AFCON. They were up
yeah.
1-0 last time I checked. Still up 1-0, 64th minute. Vesca scored in the 30th. Um, Las Palmas and Barcelona playing 30 minutes. And now to the only game that really meant something to anyone because the other games are so just boring. Girona, Atletico, 90 plus time winner. Girona walk away 4-3 victors. Morata hat trick. Did you get to watch this game?
I did not. I forget what I was doing. It may have been at work or something,
I
but
think you were working, if I had to guess.
yeah, yeah. You you truly have to consider Girona a title contender now, don't you?
Well, what I had said was, let's get through game 19 and see what happens. I'm pretty sure it was what my quote was. And they got through game 19, so they went through the whole schedule. They're 15-3-1, the same record as Real Madrid. The only reason Real Madrid are higher, is because we hold the head-to-head record. Because goal differential does not mean anything in La Liga. It does if the head-to-head is like even, but Real Madrid are top because of head-to-head record and Girona taking away those 3 points from Atleti. That was a good game, man. It was a really good game. Um, First half is I think 3-2 Girona. So second half they cut both teams kind of locked down a little bit.
Yeah.
But you gotta, I mean, if you enjoy actual good football, you gotta watch Girona, man. It's like Man City of old. Like they're just like Man City now kind of lulls you to death like Arsenal, but Girona they're high flying, they're great, they're good to watch. They're just a team that, how could you not root for these guys right now?
Right.
Um, unless you're a fan of a certain La Liga club.
Right. And they are part of that city football group, um, which is an interesting talking point. Sorry, I just clicked on Pablo Torre. It
On
was an
loan from
even game
Barca,
from
I'm
the
pretty
start.
sure.
Yeah, he is. Because that's why the name sounded familiar. And this is a team that also had Douglas Luiz a few years ago. Like they're, it's not as if they're bad. Eric Garcia and Daley Blind, that's a good, back two.
You have you have you have names. Let's just put it that way. Like
Yeah,
guys that were good, that were recognized by scouts to be good enough for top clubs.
yeah,
Either in the past, well, mostly in the past, but still the potential. Daley Blind is past it, but um, Eric Garcia still has a lot to prove. And you have Real Madrid loanee Miguel Gutierrez at left back. Um, you have Savio, who's been awesome on the right wing. City want to sign him. That's how good he's been. So yeah, I mean, it's just they're gonna get picked apart this summer. Alex Garcia will be gone too.
yeah. But
Um,
that stinks. Um,
that's a part of that's all these guys went to Girona to hope to take a bigger step eventually. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
It's sort of like that
this,
Monaco team with the UCL run a
yeah,
few years ago.
except
Yeah,
these guys won't get a UCL run.
yeah, it's true. You do have to mention Murata's hat trick. Most of the time, if you score a hat trick, your team's going to come out on top, but not always the case. And Girona show resilience, and I don't know, what a fantastic result for them. Probably game of the year so far.
Has
Only
to
three
be
days into the
across
year.
across all. Well, I was gonna say probably game of the season across every
Yeah,
competition. You would think. Um, Late winner, 7 goals. I mean, come on. All that being said, though, I just it was a real, especially after drawing 1-1. Um, you gotta you gotta feel for this team. Ivan Martin scores the winner, and just looking at these lineups, man, like this Girona team should not be doing what they're doing to this Atleti team. Witzel, Jimenez, Hermoso in the back line with Oblak and net, Koke, Llorente, and DePaul in midfield, Riquelme and Lino as the wingbacks, and Morata and Griezmann up top. Come on now.
yeah.
Like, seriously? And,
No, that's a great squad.
yeah, and some interesting facts. Just, I thought that Girona might struggle a little bit against Atleti just because of the way Atleti plays, but they didn't. They came out flying, got one in the second minute, got one in the 26th and the 39th. They were comfortably up 3-1. And then Atleti fight back, and then they napped the winner. When it looked to be a draw, I watched the second half. I did not tune into the first half. Unfortunately, I was busy yesterday. So that being said, we had a pretty boring Serie A weekend. Napoli dropped points, Inter dropped points. Uh, Bologna lose to Udinese. Kind of crazy when you think about it. Milan barely beat Sassuolo, and Juve beat Roma in dominating fashion. 1.07 XG to 0.36. But the real interesting thing is midweek we had more Coppa Italia fixtures. Milan dominate Caligari 4-1. Atalanta beat Sassuolo 3-1, and Roma beat Cremonese. I'm guessing that's how you say it. I don't really know.
Yeah,
2-1. And Juventus play Salernitana today at 3. And then for the quarterfinals, we have Lazio already playing Roma for a Rome derby, Milan, Atalanta, Fiorentina, and Bologna, and then the winner of Juve and Salernitana plays Frosinone. Do you think this is a chance for Bologna to get some silverware this season?
I think so because you have Lazio and Roma, who are two of the stronger teams. One of them's going to knock the other out, and besides that, Bologna are just a good squad. The 3-0 against Udinese was probably unfair to them. What's the XG here? 1.1 to 1. So, the XG was tied, which Udinese typically do. I didn't get a chance to really look into the game. It's been a whirlwind of a week, but just from that,
It's been
yeah,
holidays, so
yeah,
we kind of took it with a grain of salt this week.
yeah.
Anyway,
But yeah, Bologna, a cup win for a team that has, been the surprise, played good football, had some good players like Zirkzee in there, and they could definitely win. Would I place money on them? I don't know if I, probably not. But I could also
You
just,
know, you have Juve there who's gonna fight for it. You have Roma and Lazio in a one match game. Either of them go for it, so it's gonna be real interesting either way.
yeah, and they have to play Fiorentina, who's not a bad team themselves. Um, Roma have been pretty poor though. Their 2-1 against Cremonese, like, yeah, Cremonese scored with their only shot on net, but I don't know. I just feel like it shouldn't even get to that point where they have to have a late pen to win the game, especially at home. Atalanta took care of Sassuolo, and they could also probably win the competition.
Well, it's
Yeah,
nice that there's no Napoli, no Inter.
yeah.
So, you know, also, who does Milan play? Does Milan play? I already forgot.
They've
Jeez.
got Atalanta.
Atalanta, yeah, that's going to be a tough game. Actually, I think the three games we have right now are actually probably the toughest. If Juve go through, though, I kind of expect Juve to at least be a semifinalist.
Yeah,
So either way, though, either way, the semifinal should be packed with four big Italian sides, which is it's good. It's better to see for the sport. Um, but it's always nice to see the dark horse too. So if France Nancy gets through in the semis, I'll be happy to see it. So,
yeah. They're not a
um,
bad
and
team from what I remember. Sorry to cut you off.
no, they're not. They also have Real Madrid loanee Rainier Jesus there.
Oh,
And
nice.
surprisingly, Milan won 4-1. Luka Jovic gets 2 goals, but Milan are still in the market for striker. Do we think this is necessary?
I would say no, just considering the versatility of the attackers that they have. Like, um, Chukwueze could play there if you need. Same with Pulisic. Sorry, I was looking at Frosinone. Um, but for
No, you're fine.
depth,
They have Pulisic, Leao, Chukwueze, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Giroud, Luka Jovic. Just some guys that come to my head right away. I can't remember
yeah,
the normal right winger though right now. Oh, it's usually Christian. God, because I was like,
yeah,
who usually starts in front of Chukwueze? Um, because they usually play a 4-2-3-1 too. So, um, they have a couple guys that can play in that 10 role as well.
yeah. And they probably do want a guy long term for Giroud. You know, they haven't truly replaced him yet, so I get it. But just them looking for one in January makes it seem like they urgently want one, which seems
Yeah,
surprising. And I know they're in the market for a Girassi, where I can't really Girassi.
yeah, that's how you say it. It's good assay. So, and the problem with good assay is just the fact that sorry, they also have Noah Okafor. I was looking at their forwards.
Yeah,
And Reinders. I don't know how to say his last name. Tihani Reinders, the Dutchman.
yeah.
Um, but Garcia has a $15.2 million release clause. Also interested with United. United are interested in buying him as well. But you have to think, is that really a war you want to get into? And also, is someone that's 27 and just now scoring more than 15 goals a season, is that really the guy you want to bring in? You're not going to go get an osimhen. You can't afford him. They tried with CDK and failed miserably. I don't know how much they spent on him, but
I don't think it was too
it's
much.
probably in the I was going to say 30s to 50s. Um, I'll tell you right now,
I mean,
CDK, nope, that's a loan move. Mm, 35
CDK.
mil.
Yeah, okay. He's another one of those
That's a
guys that's like
hefty price,
Havertz.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah, he is.
there's
I
just
mean,
no
do you
real.
want a nine though? Like, what do you want? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta. Their system seems to want a nine, so you know, I'm not saying Gadassi should be that guy, but I don't think that's I don't think CDK was the guy either for them. I think CDK is more of like a 10 for them.
Yeah, for sure.
But that being said, like you don't need it right now. You're not winning any trophies this year. Like I hate to say it, maybe a Europa League, but Giroud's good enough for that. Um, so with that being said, you might as well just wait until the summer, do your due diligence, and you know, I would kind of scan those other markets and start looking at the advanced metrics of certain forwards. Um,
Yeah.
Brighton did it right with Evan Ferguson. Like, imagine Evan Ferguson was at Milan right now. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think Giroud's young either. So I'm guessing that's what they're looking for is the replacement for Olivier. Oh. But I'm
Definitely.
guessing he's got to be like what, 33?
He's 37.
Jesus Christ.
He's been in the game for a long time, man. And,
He
that's
has
definitely what
been.
they're doing.
Holy crap.
That's definitely what they're doing. So Girassi's a whole decade younger. I get it. But he's also not the same player as Giroud. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I would just let United United buy him if I'm
Exactly.
Milan. Yeah,
I
because
just
they're both going to match their release clause, and then like you said, it's a bidding war, and you don't just let United spend 40 on him. I don't know.
I mean, why not look at Luis Openda, you know?
Yeah,
Or, go get Sebastian Haller from Dortmund who's not playing because Nicholas Füllkrug is the starter. Or,
yeah,
like there's to me there's clearly ways around, you know, going in that direction. The problem is I think they've tried so often and failed with so many strikers in recent times. Um, Andre Silva failure at Milan is one that pops into my mind. But Lukaku's someone that's on loan at Roma that you could probably get for cheap because his contract's probably got to be out here pretty soon because he's had a falling out with Chelsea. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Um, but we saw how broke Inter Milan was, so maybe AC Milan's kind of in the same boat.
They very well could be. They spent a decent amount over this last summer. I They're just in a weird spot, because they won the title not that long ago, and now it's like, what are we really doing here? They're relying on Giroud, and then they relied on Ibrahimovic. It's strange. They have some good youngsters too, Shaka
I was gonna
Traore
say
and
that Milan striker who already played. He's a
which guy?
nine. Francesco Camarda. Camarda. He made his debut this season. He's only 15. He came on in like the 80th
Oh,
minute. You know what I'm talking
I
about? It
got.
made the news. He's a
Yeah,
striker
yeah,
though. He scored like 483 goals in 87 games last year or something like that.
yeah.
Or like
Yeah,
maybe that's
that's
over his AC
ridiculous.
Milan career or something like that. I don't know. But that being
Yeah,
said, you can't rely on that kid, but why not bring him into the mix? And, you have Jovic, you have Giroud, just bring him into the mix and see if he's worth it, like give the youth products at least a try before you just go spend money in the market.
yeah, and that's really the case in point here. I think they have depth in attack. If they're going to spend, I think it should be in midfield or defense because the squad's good. They just need to add a few more guys so they can rotate more often and not have to go through what they've gone through this season. Um. Anyways,
So I just want to say that Bundesliga is still not back yet. It'll be back next weekend, and League One will also be back next weekend. EPL this weekend has FA Cup, if I'm correct, right?
yeah, yeah,
So we'll be talking about FA Cup. La Liga has Copa del Rey this weekend. So we'll be talking about that. And then Serie A is back to the league this weekend. So that will also be on our plate. Some interesting fixtures there, but nothing great. I don't really know much about the FA Cup if there's any good games there. I know we have Roma Atalanta in Copa del Rey should be quite boring. It's around a 32, so anyone that can do simple math knows that we're probably not going to have many juicy fixtures in this one. Like
yeah,
Real Madrid play Argentina. Argentina is a third division side. Um, Malaga's actually made it this far, but they play Sociedad. I'm trying to see if there's any interesting games though. I don't see anything. Alaves plays Real Betis. Espanyol play Getafe. Elche played Girona. So, you got some second division sides playing first division sides, but nothing too special, so to speak.
Yeah. There's no good games in the FA Cup except Arsenal Liverpool Sunday morning. Um, so that should be nice, but that's also probably a chance for those teams to rotate. Um,
Oh, most likely. And it looks like Athletic Club scored again.
oh,
Up
nice.
2-0 now. Yep, up 2-0. Correa scored. And so we might not be coming back to you after this weekend, depending on how the games go. It might be another midweek kind of thing because we'll at least have, I don't know if EPL has midweek games, but
Probably.
La Liga has their Spanish Super Cup coming up. Um,
Nice.
so it doesn't look like Prem has anything until the 13th, which then we'll be back in full swing.
Yeah.
Anything
Then
else,
it'll
Kev?
really start. No, it'll really start kicking off soon. Even the Bundesliga fixtures don't look like too enticing. Leipzig, Frankfurt's about it. But we shall see.
Yep. Thank you all for listening to the Football Philosophy Podcast. Share on any social medias. Go follow us. Tell some friends. We do this because we love it. So even if no one's listening, I'm sure we'll still be here. Thank you all for listening. I was about to say Hollow
Peace.
Madrid, but that doesn't really apply here. I'll see you, Kev.
I'll see you.